The morning sky above New York City suddenly changed from blue to an eerie purple glow. People stopped walking on the sidewalks and looked up at the massive shape that appeared above them. The object was so large it blocked out the sun for several city blocks. Similar scenes played out across every major city on Earth as enormous. Alien ships positioned themselves in the atmosphere. President Kate Morrison was having her morning coffee in the White House when her chief of staff burst through the door. "Madam President, we have a situation," he said, his face pale with worry. Within minutes, Kate found herself in the underground situation room surrounded by her top advisors and military leaders. The main screen flickered to life, showing a creature unlike anything humanity had ever seen. It stood nearly 12 feet tall with 4 arms and skin that looked like living crystal. Its voice came through the speakers with perfect English, though everyone knew it was being translated by some advanced technology. "Primitive species of the third planet from your star," the alien began, its voice carrying no emotion. "I am Ambassador Zethkar of the Galactic Council. Your species has committed crimes against the established order of this galaxy." Secretary of Defense Frank Chen leaned forward in his chair. He had been expecting something like this ever since their deep space probes had started disappearing 6 months ago. "What crimes?" he whispered to President Morrison, though he already suspected the answer. The alien continued its speech as if it could hear every word spoken on Earth. "You have sent ships beyond your solar system without permission from the proper authorities. You have established illegal colonies on worlds that do not belong to you. You have developed faster-than-light travel without authorization from the Galactic Council." Admiral Lisa Hayes, the commander of Earth's small space fleet, watched the alien with careful eyes. She had spent the last 3 years preparing for exactly this moment. Her ships were few compared to what intelligence suggested the aliens possessed. But she knew something the aliens did not. "The Galactic Council has governed this section of the galaxy for over 10,000 of your years," Zethkar announced. "We maintain order among the stars. We decide which species may travel between worlds, and which must remain confined to their birth planets. Your species has chosen to ignore our authority." President Morrison felt a cold anger building in her chest, but her face remained calm. She had learned long ago that showing emotion during a crisis only made things worse. "What do they want?" she asked Admiral Hayes quietly. "The same thing bullies always want," Hayes replied. "Complete surrender." As if responding to her words, the alien ambassador delivered the ultimatum that would change everything. "The Galactic Council demands the immediate return of all human vessels currently beyond your solar system. You will cease all faster-than-light travel immediately. You will surrender your colonial settlements to proper council authority. You will submit to our governance and accept the limitations we place upon your species." The room fell silent except for the humming of computers and air conditioning. Every person present understood that they were witnessing a moment that would define humanity's future among the stars. "You have 72 of your hours to comply with these demands," Zethkar continued. "If you refuse, the Council will take necessary action to ensure your compliance. We have dealt with defiant species before. It does not end well for them." The transmission ended, leaving the situation room in heavy silence. President Morrison looked around the table at her advisors. Some faces showed fear, others showed anger, but she saw something else in Admiral Hayes' expression. The military leader looked almost pleased. "Madam President," Admiral Hayes said quietly, "I need to brief you on Project Lazarus." Frank Chen raised his eyebrows. "Project Lazarus? I've never heard of any such project." "That was intentional," Hayes replied. "Some preparations needed to remain completely secret, even from our closest allies." President Morrison nodded slowly. She had authorized several black budget projects over the past 3 years, trusting her military leaders to prepare for threats they couldn't yet see clearly. "Tell me everything." Hayes activated a secure terminal and brought up classified files that made everyone in the room lean forward. 3 years ago, our deep space scouts made first contact with alien patrol ships. The encounters were brief, but we learned enough to understand that we were not alone, and that whoever was out there had technology far beyond ours. But the screen showed images of sleek alien vessels and combat, footage from space encounters that the public had never seen. We also learned that they were watching us, tracking our expansion into space, and preparing to make contact when they decided the time was right. Dr. Amy Carter, the president's science advisor, studied the data with growing amazement. These ships are using technology that shouldn't be possible based on our understanding of physics. That's what we thought too, Hayes continued. Until we found something that changed everything. She switched to a new set of images showing strange structures discovered on the ocean floor near the Mariana Trench. These ruins are over 50,000 years old. They contain technology that makes our best computers look like pocket calculators. President Morrison felt pieces of a puzzle beginning to fit together. You've been reverse engineering alien technology. Not just reverse engineering, Hayes corrected. We've been improving it. The beings who left these ruins behind were incredibly advanced, but they've been gone for millennia. Humanity has had to figure out how their technology works and how to make it better. Frank Chen looked skeptical. And you think this ancient technology can help us fight off an entire galactic empire? Hayes smiled, and for the first time since the alien transmission, President Morrison felt a spark of hope. Sir, I think this ancient technology is going to give us advantages that the Galactic Council never saw coming. What kind of advantages? The President asked. The kind that will make them regret ever threatening Earth, Hayes replied. President Morrison stood up from her chair and looked at each person in the room. Ladies and gentlemen, it appears we have 72 hours to show the galaxy what humanity is really capable of. She turned to Hayes. Admiral, prepare whatever response you think is appropriate. Yes, ma'am, Hayes said with that same confident smile. I believe it's time to let the Galactic Council know that they picked the wrong species to threaten. As the meeting broke up and advisors hurried off to their various tasks, President Morrison remained in the Situation Room staring at the images of alien ships hovering over Earth's cities. In 72 hours, she would give the galaxy an answer that would surprise everyone, including her own people. The Galactic Council thought they were dealing with a primitive species that would surrender when faced with overwhelming force. They were about to learn that humanity had been preparing for this moment far longer than anyone imagined. The response came exactly 71 hours after the Galactic Council's ultimatum. President Kate Morrison stood before cameras in the White House press room, with every major news network broadcasting her words to the world and beyond. Her voice was steady and clear when she looked directly into the camera. Ambassador Zethkar and the Galactic Council, humanity has considered your demands carefully. Our answer is no. We will not surrender our ships, abandon our colonies, or submit to your authority. Earth stands free. The transmission was sent on all frequencies, reaching not just the alien fleet surrounding Earth, but every listening post across the galaxy. Within hours, the Galactic Council's response began. Ambassador Zethkar appeared on screens across Earth once more, his crystalline features showing what might have been amusement. Your defiance was expected. Most primitive species choose to resist before accepting reality. The Council has dealt with such foolishness before. High above Earth's atmosphere, the first wave of alien ships began moving toward the planet's orbital stations. Captain Jake Sullivan watched from the bridge of Defense Station Olympus as dozens of sleek alien vessels approached his position. The station was humanity's newest orbital platform, equipped with the most advanced weapons Earth could build. All stations, this is Olympus Control, Sullivan broadcast to the other human facilities scattered around Earth's orbit. Enemy ships are approaching. Remember your training. Stay calm and follow the plan. Dr. Amy Carter monitored the situation from her laboratory buried deep beneath the Antarctic ice. Banks of computers surrounded her, all connected to quantum communication systems that most of Earth's government didn't even know existed. She watched as alien ships positioned themselves exactly where her calculations had predicted they would. Perfect, she whispered to her assistant. They're following their standard attack pattern just like our intelligence suggested they would. The alien fleet sensors easily detected humanity's orbital defenses. To Council military analysts, the human positions looked pathetically weak. A handful of space stations, some small patrol ships, and what appeared to be outdated defensive satellites. The humans had clearly built their defenses in desperate haste after receiving the Council's ultimatum. What the alien sensors did not detect were the thousands of small objects floating throughout Earth's orbital space. Each device was no larger than a baseball and used technology that made them nearly invisible to standard scanners. They had been placed carefully over the past 3 years, disguised as space debris and communication satellites. Commander Ryan Bell watched the alien approach from his hidden position near Saturn's rings. His stealth ship had been stationed there for 6 months, completely undetectable to Council sensors. He commanded a small fleet of similar vessels, all equipped with technology that shouldn't have existed according to everything the galaxy knew about human capabilities. All Ghost Squadron vessels. This is Phantom Leader. Bell transmitted using quantum communication channels that the aliens couldn't intercept. Target positions confirmed. Prepare for Operation Lazarus on my mark. The first alien ship crossed into what they considered Earth's defensive perimeter. Captain Sullivan opened communications from Olympus Station, his voice carrying across all frequencies. Alien vessels, you are entering restricted space. Turn back now or face the consequences. The Council ships ignored the warning, just as everyone had expected they would. Their formation spread out to surround the human orbital facilities, preparing to disable Earth's defenses with minimal effort. It would be a quick demonstration of power before the final demand for surrender. Dr. Carter's fingers moved across her control panels as quantum signatures throughout human space began shifting in perfect coordination. The technology she was using had been developed from artifacts found in ancient ruins, but humanity had improved it far beyond what the original builders had ever imagined. All stations, execute Protocol 7, she announced into her communication system. Around Earth, the hidden devices suddenly activated. Space that had appeared empty moments before blazed with energy fields that trapped the alien ships like insects in amber. The Council vessels found their engines unable to respond, and their weapon systems completely offline. Commander Bell smiled as his scanners showed the alien fleet locked in place. Ghost Squadron, you are clear to decloak. Let's show our guests what real human technology looks like. The space around Saturn's ring shimmered as dozens of human warships became visible. These were not the crude orbital defense platforms the aliens had seen near Earth. These vessels were sleek, advanced, and obviously designed for deep space combat. Admiral Lisa Hayes appeared on communication screens throughout the trapped alien fleet. She was no longer speaking from Earth but from the bridge of a massive human warship that had materialized seemingly from nowhere. Council ships, this is Admiral Hayes of the Earth Defense Force. Your vessels are currently held in quantum stasis fields. Your weapons are inoperative and your engines cannot engage. We suggest you listen carefully to what we have to say. Ambassador Zethkar stared at his bridge displays in confusion. His fleet sensors were showing impossible readings. The primitive humans had somehow trapped over 3,000 advanced Council warships, using technology that his science officers insisted could not exist. How is this possible? He demanded of his tactical officer. Sir, our ships are surrounded by some kind of quantum field that we've never encountered before. It's interfering with all our systems except life support and communications. President Morrison's image appeared on every Council ship's communication system. She was no longer speaking from the White House, but from what appeared to be the command center of a massive space facility. Ambassador Zethkar, you made several incorrect assumptions about humanity. You assumed we were primitive because we allowed you to see only what we wanted you to see. You assumed we were unprepared because we've only recently begun space travel. You assumed we would be easy to defeat because your previous encounters with us were carefully staged. Captain Tony Rivers led a squadron of human warships into position around the Council flagship. The alien crew watched in amazement as vessels appeared that were clearly more advanced than anything in the Council fleet. The human ships moved with precision that spoke of years of training and preparation. The truth is simple, President Morrison continued. Humanity has been preparing for this moment since we first realized we were not alone in the galaxy. Every ship of ours that your patrols encountered was designed to be found. Every piece of technology we showed you was deliberately outdated. Every response we made to your presence was calculated to make you underestimate us. The Council fleet remained trapped and helpless as more human vessels appeared throughout the solar system. It became clear that Earth possessed a military force far larger and more sophisticated than any intelligence reports had, suggested Dr. Carter monitored the quantum fields holding the alien ships and smiled with satisfaction. The plan was working perfectly. Humanity had spent 3 years learning everything possible about Council technology and tactics. Now it was time to show the galaxy that humans were far more dangerous than anyone had imagined. Ambassador Zethkar stared at the impossible sight on his main screen. His massive fleet, the pride of the Galactic Council military, sat motionless in space like toys frozen in ice. Every system except life support and communications had been disabled by technology that his best scientists insisted could not exist. "Explain this," he demanded of his chief science officer. The smaller alien's tentacles writhed nervously as it studied the sensor readings. "Sir, we are surrounded by quantum fields that operate on principles we do not understand. The energy signatures suggest technology that is thousands of years more advanced than anything we have encountered." Colonel Sam Parker stood in the war room buried deep beneath the Colorado mountains, watching displays that showed the positions of every council ship in the solar system. Around him, dozens of technicians monitored the quantum fields that held the alien fleet helpless. "Sir, all enemy vessels are secured," reported Lieutenant Emma Torres from her position at the main control console. "The interdiction fields are holding perfectly. They can't move, they can't fight, and they can't escape." Dr. Helen Walsh watched from her laboratory as years of secret research finally proved their worth. The artifacts they had found in Earth's deepest ocean trenches had contained technology beyond human understanding, but human ingenuity had found ways to improve upon it. The beings who had left those ruins behind had been incredibly advanced, but they had also been limited by their own thinking. "The original builders never imagined using quantum fields this way," she explained to her research team. "They used the technology for communication and travel. We figured out how to use it as a weapon." Admiral Lisa Hayes opened communication channels from her flagship, the Defiant. The massive vessel had been built in secret shipyards beyond Pluto, using materials and technology that officially did not exist. Her crew had trained for 3 years for exactly this moment. "Council ships, you are experiencing humanity's first demonstration of what we call Forerunner technology. The beings who originally created this science disappeared from the galaxy long before any of your species achieved spaceflight, Captain." Tony Rivers commanded a squadron of Earth's newest warships as they took positions throughout the alien formation. Each human vessel was equipped with technology that made the Council's most advanced ships look primitive by comparison. "Admiral, all Guardian Squadron ships are in position," Rivers reported. "The aliens aren't going anywhere." Dr. Nathan Cooper transmitted from the research vessel Discovery, which had been disguised as a deep space explorer for the past 5 years. In reality, the ship had been mapping ancient ruins throughout the galaxy, discovering the truth about the technology that made interstellar civilization possible. "Ambassador Zethkar, your council claims to rule the galaxy based on your control of the hyperspace network that connects star systems. You present yourselves as the builders and maintainers of this great achievement. We have learned that this is a lie." The alien ambassador's crystalline features showed confusion and growing fear. "What lies do you speak, primitive human?" President Morrison appeared on screens throughout the Council fleet, but she was no longer speaking from Earth. Her image came from New Geneva, humanity's first true colony, which had been operational for 7 years without the Council's knowledge. "We speak of the truth that your empire has hidden from the galaxy for thousands of years. The hyperspace network that you claim to own was not built by any species currently living. It was created by beings we call the Forerunners, who vanished long before your council existed." Major Alex Brown led the stealth reconnaissance force that had been mapping council territory for years, while remaining completely undetected. His ships carried technology that made them invisible to every scanner the aliens possessed. "We have been watching your empire for longer than you realize," Brown transmitted to the trapped fleet. "We know the location of every council world, every military base, every supply depot. We have been learning your weaknesses while you thought you were learning ours." The revelation sent shockwaves through the council fleet as alien officers realized the magnitude of their situation. They were not dealing with a primitive species that had stumbled into space travel. They were facing beings who had discovered the galaxy's greatest secret and learned to use it better than its supposed masters. Captain Rosa Martinez, head of humanity's diplomatic corps, made the situation perfectly clear to the alien commanders. "The Council maintains power by controlling access to the hyperspace network. You charge other species for the right to travel between stars. You restrict which worlds can be colonized and which technologies can be developed. You have created an empire based on a monopoly over something that was meant to be shared freely." Dr. Walsh activated holographic displays that showed the interior of Forerunner ruins found throughout the galaxy. The ancient structures contained clear evidence that their builders had intended the hyperspace network to be used by all intelligent species. The original creators left instructions in their ruins," she explained. They wanted all spacefaring civilizations to have equal access to the galaxy. The Council perverted this vision into a tool for control and exploitation. Ambassador Zethkar felt his entire worldview crumbling as he listened to the human revelations. "How long have you known this?" Dr. Cooper answered from the Discovery. "We found our first Forerunner ruins 12 years ago in Earth's deepest ocean trenches. Since then, we have discovered similar sites throughout human space and beyond. Each location taught us more about the true history of galactic civilization." Admiral Hayes brought up tactical displays that showed the full extent of humanity's real military capabilities. Hidden shipyards throughout the outer solar system had been producing advanced warships for years. Stealth bases on distant asteroids had been launching reconnaissance missions deep into Council space. While you were watching our obvious colonies and intercepting our obvious ships, we were building a fleet that could challenge your entire empire, Hayes explained. Every encounter between our species was carefully planned to give you false information about our true capabilities. President Morrison delivered the final revelation that would change the balance of power in the galaxy forever. The technology you see demonstrated here today represents only a small fraction of what we have learned from the Forerunner legacy. We have not just reverse-engineered their science. We have improved upon it in ways they never imagined. The space around the trapped Council fleet filled with human vessels as more ships decloaked or dropped out of hyperspace. Each new arrival demonstrated technology that surpassed anything the aliens had ever encountered. Ambassador Zethkar, President Morrison continued, your Council demanded humanity's surrender. Instead, we offer you a choice. Abandon your imperial ambitions and help us create a true galactic community, or face a species that has learned to use the galaxy's inheritance as it was meant to be. The alien ambassador stared at the displays showing his helpless fleet, surrounded by ships that represented the end of everything his civilization had built upon. Humanity had not just refused to surrender. They had revealed themselves as the true heirs to the galaxy's greatest legacy. General Carl Martinez stood on the observation deck of New Geneva Station and watched as another transport ship arrived from Earth. The colony that the Galactic Council believed was humanity's first desperate attempt at expansion had actually been thriving for 7 years. Below him, cities sprawled across continents while orbital elevators carried goods between the surface and space. "Sir, the latest intelligence reports from our deep space scouts." His aide handed him a datapad containing information that would have shocked the Council leadership. Human exploration ships had been mapping the galaxy for years, staying invisible while they learned everything about the civilizations that called themselves the Masters of Space. Ambassador Zethkar remained trapped aboard his flagship, studying the readings his instruments provided about the human technology, holding his fleet captive. His science officers had been working around the clock to understand how the quantum fields operated. But every analysis led to the same impossible conclusion. The energy pattern suggests this technology is at least 50,000 years old, his chief scientist reported. But it has been modified and improved using principles we do not understand. Whoever upgraded this science possesses knowledge that surpasses even our most advanced theoretical work. Dr. Nathan Cooper transmitted from the Discovery as his ship approached one of the massive Forerunner installations that humanity had discovered beyond the galactic edge. The ancient structures were larger than entire star systems and contained technology that dwarfed anything the current galaxy had ever imagined. What you see here, Ambassador, represents the true scope of Forerunner civilization, Cooper explained as holographic displays showed the alien fleet what lay hidden in the galaxy's unexplored regions. These beings didn't just build the hyperspace network. They created infrastructure that could support thousands of species across millions of worlds. The revelation struck the Council leadership like a physical blow. Their entire civilization was based on controlling access to what they claimed were the galaxy's primary transportation routes. Learning that those routes were actually just a tiny fraction of what the original builders had created shattered their understanding of their own importance. Captain Jake Sullivan coordinated with Earth's orbital defenses as more Council ships arrived in the system, apparently unaware that their advanced fleet had been captured. Each new arrival found itself immediately trapped in the same quantum fields that held their comrades helpless. Admiral Hayes, we have 17 more Council vessels dropping out of hyperspace, Sullivan reported from Olympus Station. Should we activate containment fields? Negative, Captain. Let them see what happened to their friends first. Sometimes the best weapon is fear. Dr. Amy Carter monitored the quantum field generators from her Antarctic laboratory while simultaneously tracking Council communications across their entire empire. The technology that held their fleet captive was also capable of intercepting and translating every message sent between their worlds. "Ma'am, we're receiving thousands of transmissions from Council territory," her assistant reported. "It appears that news of our demonstration is spreading faster than their government can control." The intercepted messages painted a picture of an empire in chaos. Species that had been forced to accept Council rule for generations were learning that their oppressors had no legitimate claim to authority. Rebellion was breaking out on worlds across the galaxy as the truth about Forerunner technology spread. Major Alex Brown led his reconnaissance fleet back from deep Council space with intelligence that would reshape humanity's understanding of galactic politics. His stealth ships had observed the Council's military response to the crisis, and the results were both encouraging and terrifying. "Mr. President, the Council is mobilizing every military asset they possess," Brown reported during a secure transmission. "They're pulling ships from border defense, colony protection, even their home fleet. Everything is being sent toward Earth." President Morrison received the report from her command center on New Geneva. The facility had been built to coordinate humanity's expansion across multiple star systems, but now it served as the nerve center for what might become the galaxy's largest war. "How many ships are we talking about, Major?" "Conservative estimates suggest over 50,000 vessels, ma'am. They're stripping their entire empire of protection to deal with what they see as an existential threat." Admiral Lisa Hayes smiled when she received the same intelligence report. The Council's response was exactly what humanity had hoped for. By concentrating their forces for an attack on Earth, they were leaving their territory vulnerable to the surprise humanity had been preparing for years. "All fleet commanders, this is Admiral Hayes. Execute Operation Prometheus. It's time to show the galaxy what freedom looks like." Across Council space, human ships that had been hiding in asteroid fields and nebulae for months suddenly revealed themselves. Each vessel carried technology that allowed them to disable the hyperspace network nodes that the Council used to maintain control over their territory. Captain, Tony Rivers led the assault on the Council's primary communication hub, a massive space station that coordinated traffic throughout their core worlds. His squadron appeared without warning and surrounded the facility before its defenders could react. "Attention, Council Station. This is Captain Rivers of the Earth Liberation Fleet. You are ordered to shut down all hyperspace interdiction fields and cease all restrictions on galactic travel. Comply immediately or face the consequences." Dr. Helen Walsh watched from Earth as her quantum communication network allowed humanity to coordinate attacks across thousands of light years instantaneously. The same technology that had trapped the Council fleet was now enabling human forces to strike simultaneously at targets throughout the galaxy. "The hyperspace nodes are shutting down exactly as planned," she reported to President Morrison. "Species that have been trapped on their homeworlds for centuries will soon have access to free travel throughout the galaxy." Ambassador Zethkar received reports from throughout the Council Empire as human attacks disabled the infrastructure that maintained their control. Worlds that had been paying tribute for generations suddenly found themselves free to trade with whomever they chose. Species that had been denied access to advanced technology discovered that the restrictions had been lifted. "How is this possible?" Zethkar demanded. "Our intelligence indicated that humans possessed perhaps 100 ships at most," Dr. Cooper answered from the Discovery as his vessel approached the Council flagship. "Your intelligence was based on what we allowed you to see. The truth is that humanity has been building ships in hidden facilities throughout the outer galaxy. We've been preparing for this moment since we first learned about your empire." The scope of humanity's deception became clear as more reports arrived from Council territory. Human colonies existed on worlds the Council had never known were inhabited. Human research stations operated in systems the Council had never explored. Humanity had been expanding throughout the galaxy, while remaining completely invisible to those who claimed to rule it. President Morrison appeared once more on screens throughout the trapped Council fleet. Behind her, displays showed the liberation of world after world as the Council's control network collapsed. "Ambassador Zethkar, your empire is ending not because we destroyed it, but because we revealed the truth about it. The galaxy belongs to all its people, not to those who would claim ownership of what others built. The alien ambassador watched his life's work crumble as the last reports came in from the Council's outer territories. Humanity had not simply defeated the Council military. They had freed an entire galaxy from thousands of years of oppression. 6 months after the collapse of the Galactic Council, Ambassador Grace Kelly stood before the largest gathering of alien species in recorded history. The newly constructed Galactic Assembly Hall orbited Earth, its transparent walls offering views of the planet that had sparked the revolution, that freed an entire galaxy. Representatives from 217 worlds, she announced to the assembled delegates, "We gather today not as subjects of an empire, but as equals in a community that spans the stars." The transformation had been swift and dramatic. Within weeks of humanity's revelation about Forerunner technology, species across the galaxy had risen up against their council oppressors. Some rebellions had been peaceful, with local governors simply walking away from their posts. Others had required intervention from human liberation fleets, but the outcome had always been the same. Former Council Ambassador Zethkar sat in the assembly hall, wearing simple civilian clothing rather than the elaborate robes of his former office. He had chosen cooperation over continued resistance, becoming one of the most vocal advocates for the new galactic order. "I owe you an apology," he said during his speech to the assembly. "My species believed we were bringing order to chaos, but we were actually preventing the galaxy from reaching its true potential. Humanity showed us a better way." Admiral Chuck Davis reported from the galaxy's outer rim, where human exploration fleets were making discoveries that amazed even the most optimistic scientists. The Forerunner civilization had been far more extensive than anyone had imagined, and their ruins contained technology that could transform life for every species in the galaxy. "We've discovered installations that can terraform entire worlds in a matter of years," Davis transmitted to the assembly. "Agricultural systems that can feed billions without environmental damage. Medical technology that can extend lifespans and eliminate diseases that have plagued species for millennia." Dr. Betty Johnson led the joint research initiative that brought together the brightest minds from dozens of species. Former council scientists worked alongside human researchers and alien academics who had been denied access to advanced knowledge for generations. The council hoarded this technology for thousands of years, Johnson explained to the assembly. They used it to maintain their power while billions of beings lived in poverty and ignorance. Now that knowledge belongs to everyone. The results were visible throughout the galaxy. Worlds that had been struggling under council taxation were now prospering with access to advanced technology. Species that had been confined to single-star systems were exploring the galaxy freely. Trade and communication flowed along routes that had been restricted for millennia. President Kate Morrison walked through the gardens of New Athens, the former council homeworld that had been transformed into a center of learning and cooperation. The planet's cities had been rebuilt to accommodate dozens of different species, creating a truly cosmopolitan society. "The transition has gone better than we hoped," she told the journalists following her through the peaceful streets. "When people are given the chance to cooperate instead of being forced to compete, they usually choose cooperation." Captain Tony Rivers commanded one of the many mixed-species crews that now operated throughout the galaxy. His ship included humans, former council members, and representatives from species that had been enslaved for generations. The diversity was challenging but rewarding. "Working together isn't always easy," Rivers admitted during a broadcast from his bridge. "Different species have different ways of thinking and different needs. But when we combine our strengths, we can accomplish things that none of us could manage alone." Dr. Nathan Cooper continued his research into Forerunner technology from installations that had been hidden throughout the galaxy. Each new discovery revealed more about the ancient civilization that had created the foundation for modern galactic society. "They were explorers like us," Cooper explained as he showed holographic records found in a newly discovered archive. "They wanted to see what was possible when different forms of life worked together. The council perverted that dream into a nightmare of control and oppression. The economic transformation was as dramatic as the political changes. Species that had been forced to pay tribute to the council now kept their resources for their own development. The hyperspace network, no longer controlled by a single authority, allowed free trade between worlds that had been isolated for centuries. Ambassador Grace Kelly met with trade representatives from the Outer Rim territories, worlds so distant that the Council had barely acknowledged their existence. Now these systems were becoming major centers of commerce and innovation. "The galaxy is bigger than any of us realized," she told the assembled delegates. The Council only controlled about 30% of inhabited systems. The rest were either ignored or actively suppressed. Now they're free to contribute their knowledge and resources to our common prosperity. Former Council military officers had been given the choice of retirement or service in the new Galactic Protection Force. Many chose to continue serving, but now their mission was exploration and disaster relief rather than conquest and oppression. General Carl Martinez coordinated relief efforts for systems that had been damaged during the transition period. Some former Council loyalists had tried to maintain control through violence, but they found themselves facing not just human forces, but liberation fleets crewed by every species in their former empire. The old empire maintained order through fear, Martinez explained to new recruits from a dozen different worlds. "We maintain peace through cooperation and mutual respect. It's harder work, but the results are worth the effort." Dr. Amy Carter's quantum communication network had expanded to connect every inhabited system in the galaxy. Information that had once been restricted to Council elites was now freely available to anyone who wanted to learn. "Knowledge grows when it's shared," Carter told the Assembly during her presentation on education initiatives. The Council tried to control progress by limiting access to information. Now that everyone can contribute to our understanding, we're advancing faster than ever before. The transformation wasn't complete, and challenges remained. Some species struggled to adapt to freedom after centuries of oppression. Others had difficulty working with former enemies. But progress was visible everywhere. President Morrison stood once more before the cameras, this time addressing not just Earth but every inhabited world in the galaxy. Behind her, the lights of New Athens sparkled in the evening sky as beings from hundreds of different species went about their daily lives in peace. 6 months ago, the Galactic Council demanded our surrender, she said with a smile that was no longer cold but genuinely warm. They believed that might made right, that control was more important than cooperation, that some species were meant to rule while others were meant to serve. She gestured toward the thriving city behind her, where humans worked alongside aliens who had once been bitter enemies. They were wrong about everything. Today we live in a galaxy where every species has the right to determine its own future, where knowledge is shared freely, and where cooperation has replaced conquest. The Council demanded Earth's surrender. Instead, humanity offered the galaxy something far more valuable than submission. We offered hope. The broadcast ended, but the work continued. Across the galaxy, beings of countless species worked together to build a civilization that the Forerunners would have been proud to see. Humanity had answered the Council's ultimatum with more than defiance. They had answered with the dream of a better galaxy for everyone,